Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today's topic is, do I need medicated poultry feed? My name is Jeff Maddox and I'll be your host. Let's get started. So what is medication? What is the medication in chicken feed? Well, the most common medication in chicken feed, or actually the only over-the-counter medication in a chicken feed, is Amprolium. Amprolium is the base name. It's known throughout the country under different trade names. You may see it, in different, with a different name. But at the end of the day, it is Amprolium. And what is Amprolium? Amprolium is a quaternized derivative of pyrimidine that interferes with thiamine metabolism. Sounds really bad. You're welcome to look it up for more information if you like. I found this at sciencedirect.com. Amprolium is an FDA-approved controlled feed additive. It's not an FDA-listed as an antibiotic type medication. Therefore, the FDA does not require withdrawal period before processing and eating poultry, meat birds being fed Amprolium. What is Amprolium used for? Well, Amprolium is used for the treatment of coccidiosis. What is coccidiosis? A lot of people don't actually understand. They've heard the word, and coccidiosis is the disease caused by coccidia. Coccidia is a protozoa that acts like the combination of an internal parasite and a bacterial intestinal infection. Coccidia is actually a protozoa. It's a single-celled species. It lives within the digestive tract of the animal, and it can also remain viable in the soil or out in nature for several years without a host. As long as there's any moisture or something else, they know that coccidia and the oocyst, or the egg, can remain viable in the soil for several years. Up to 7 is what I've been told. The egg of a coccidia is an oocyst, as I mentioned earlier. Either the oocyst or the adult coccidia has to be ingested or eaten by the animal that it is going before it starts the infection. So any animal, chicken, cattle, dogs, cats, whatever, it has to actually be ingested or taken in the mouth and eaten with part of its food. So how do you know if you need it? Well, the telltale symptoms for coccidia is red, and it'll be blood red or rust color in chicken manure. So I've provided you 3 pictures in this caption that you can look at, and they all show you these are actually late stages of coccidiosis, where the intestinal wall is starting to slough off or separate and be excreted by the animal. Early signs, it'll look simply like a drop of blood on the chicken manure in a liquid form. This has some meat material in it, so it looks, this, like I said, this is late stages, late term coccidiosis towards the end of the cycle. So I provided a housekeeping checklist, and this is, simply a scorecard that will help identify if you need or do not need medicated feed. So under the list of you should use medicated feed are these environmental things that you'll see. Okay, the bedding in your chicken house is wet. You'll see clumped bedding around the feeders or the waters. You tend to leave your feeders always in the same place. You don't move them around. Feed spilled on the ground that the chickens then later go back and eat. You feed your chickens on the ground. And the reason I added poor air quality, which has nothing to do with anything else that you saw, poor air quality in a chicken house will reduce the immune system support, or the immune system's ability to respond to any infection. So anytime that you have poor air quality, you're going to have a greater chance of any type of infection taking over and reducing your bird's health. So under the list of you don't need medicated feed if your chicken's bedding is always clean and dry. You don't have clumps and wet spots in the bedding around the feeders and the waters. You have your feeders properly hung at the correct height, which is level with the average. The lip of the feeder should be level with the average bird's back. You move your feeders location very frequently, and you have a really good air quality, fresh air exchange on a continuous basis in your chicken house. So feed style comparison, there's two pictures here. The one on the left, if you're feeding with your feet on the ground and if you're feeding on the ground, feeders on the ground, or there's feed on the ground, chances are you're eventually going to need help with coccidiosis, because the birds can't help themselves. They're going to scratch, they're going to peck, they're going to eat spilled grain off of the ground, and eventually they're going to pick up coccidiosis and you're going to see the infection. On the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of a pastured poultry setup where the birds move every day. So the feeder is up, it's level with the average bird's back. You don't see spilled feed on the ground, and the birds get moved every day to fresh ground, fresh pasture. So in this type of setup where the feeder moves, the birds move, the bedding changes, you will not need help with your coccidiosis. So housekeeping is absolutely key in avoiding coccidiosis and other intestinal illnesses. Okay. It decreases the chance of any disease impacting your flock. It will improve the health and the immune system of the birds, and it honestly makes raising chickens and other fowl much more enjoyable. So also keep in mind that if you do see the red, the blood red, the sloughing off, the rust-colored manure, there are alternatives to using antibiotics or medications, synthetic medications. Coccidiosis can be controlled with natural methods. At the first signs of coccidiosis or any digestive upset, okay, the manure changes, its viscosity looks different, whatever. If you would provide whole milk to the birds, doesn't have to be organic, doesn't have to be raw, although raw is much better. Feed whole milk in shallow pie tins, about half full. So when you go to the store to buy the milk, then you go to the cooking aisle, the baking aisle, and you'll find those aluminum disposable pie tins. Just pick up some of those, whatever you need. Each pie tin is good for about 10 to 12 birds. So you can do the math, get enough pie tins so all the birds can drink at the same time. And I want them to clean it up within 1 to 2 hours of you putting it out. Do this for 5 to 7 days, and the coccidiosis or the digestive upset will go away. It's really that simple. I know it sounds way too simple for a lot of folks, but you don't need a medication. You don't have to kill it. Now, if the coccidiosis has gotten extreme, a large portion, 25, 30% of the flock has it, and they're really looking bad, then you may want to get some copper sulfate, and it's a blue powder. You can get pretty much at any good garden center, come in about a 5-pound bag, and you'll dissolve that into 5 gallons of drinking water and drink, and that's their only drinking water for 3 days. Now, only 3 days. Copper can be toxic, so don't exceed the 3 days, and don't go at higher doses than 1 ounce per 5 gallons of drinking water. That's plenty. It'll do the job. More isn't better. So on the first slide, I talked about truths and myths about medicated feed. So let's delve into that a little bit before we close up. And the truths are, Amprolium only treats and prevents some types of coccidiosis. All right, so there's 8 or 9 different species of coccidiosis. They all affect the bird differently at different parts of the digestive tract, and the Amprolium treats 3 of them very well, and a 4th one so-so. It does not prevent all forms of coccidia from causing an infection. It will reduce coccidiosis infections. It will reduce the formation of coccidia, forming additional oocysts or laying eggs. And it may reduce in the potential future infections of coccidia. So some of the myths behind feeding a medicated feed is it's required to start baby poultry. And that's absolutely not the case. It is not required. There are thousands of millions of birds started every year successfully without any coccidia, without medicated feed. So it really goes back to the housekeeping checklist. It does protect chicks. People believe that it protects chicks from all types of diseases, and that is absolutely not true. Okay, it does not. It only protects them from some strains of coccidia. People believe that it improves growth potential. Again, that is not a true statement. That is a myth. It does not. In a good growing environment with good feed, good water, good management, it does not help the bird grow any faster. And the last myth is does not transfer into the meat and eggs. And we know that that is not true. It does transfer into the meat and eggs. The FDA has set a guidelines of 10 days withholding, egg withholding from marketing if the birds are being fed amprolium. So we do know that amprolium, which is a synthetic or chemical, if you will, to prevent coccidia, does transfer into the egg. That's what I have for you today. I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Maddox. This is brought to you by the Fertrell Company. We hope that you have a great day and enjoy your chickens more.